Hey guys, it's Aman
and Christina
from Our Rich Journey. We have a very special video for you guys today. If you have been keeping up with our journey, you know that Christina and I achieved financial independence and retired early at age 39. And when we were deciding where in the world we wanted to retire early to, we chose Lisbon, Portugal. And we have been in Lisbon for the past 6 months. And so on today's video, we want to talk to you about what we've learned thus far in early retirement living here in Lisbon, Portugal.
So if you're new to our channel is all about making money, investing money, and saving money on the road to financial independence. And now that we live here in Lisbon, part of our channel also incorporates our post-retirement life while living in Lisbon. Now, these things that we're going to talk about in this video are things that we didn't know before we came to Lisbon. So these are things that we've learned since living here over the past 6 months.
Now, before we get into the lessons that we've learned, I do want to celebrate our 6-month anniversary because we haven't worked in 6 months. This is unbelievable to us. We have the ultimate gift with financial independence. We can choose what we want to do every single day. And our lives here in Lisbon are amazing because of that. So keep that in mind. When you're watching this video, you too can also achieve financial independence if you have a plan. You can get to the point where we're at and decide wherever you want to live in the world. So we're going to talk about Portugal because this is where we decided to retire to.
So the first thing that we discovered was the cost of living. Now, we do cost of living videos and you can check those out. We'll leave the link in the description below. But we realized since we've been living here for the last 6 months, the cost of living has gotten lower and lower each month for us.
Now, before we moved to Portugal, we had estimated our cost of living expenses. So we had a very good idea of what it would cost us to live here. But the longer we've lived here, we realized that we overestimated. And I think that's pretty common for most people when they first go to a country. Costs are going to be more expensive when you are starting something new. But the longer you live there, you're able to identify different ways to bring your costs down. And that's exactly what we've done over the past 6 months.
So some of the things that we've identified in our budget that we've reduced over the past 6 months is definitely food. Finding a cheaper grocery store and also eating out at more affordable places that have even better food. So we've reduced our food costs. We've also reduced our transportation costs by identifying different apps that allow for us to get around that are cheaper than, for example, Uber. And we've also reduced our language course expenses. When we first moved here, we were doing a lot of one-on-one tutoring. And since we've been here for the past 6 months, we've realized that we could learn online and supplement that by meeting with more people and also conversing more in Portuguese with people that live in our neighborhood or our Portuguese friends. So that has really reduced our language course expenses.
Now, those are 3 other expenses that we've been able to bring down to reduce our cost of living. But there is also one big major expense that we've identified that we can get for a lot less, and it is our housing.
So let's talk about housing. Now, if you haven't seen our channel before, we live in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in the center of Lisbon. And we also rent the home. We do not own the house. So a lot of people ask us, or a lot of people comment, why are we renting a home? If we're millionaires, why wouldn't we just buy a home? And the answer for us is simple. When we moved here, it's a total, complete foreign location for us, and we didn't want to invest our money in real estate without being completely familiar with the real estate market here in Lisbon.
So when Christina says understanding the market, you have to understand that we are real estate investors also. And real estate investors do their research. So even if we're buying our own home, we still buy it like an investment property. We like to get out, explore every single neighborhood. We like to understand the dynamics of the real estate market here in Lisbon. How long things sit on the market. What is the average asking price? What is the list versus actual sale price ratio? I mean, homes are listed for one price, but they sell for a different price. So we want to understand all of the dynamics before we just go out and buy a home. And so what we've learned so far is really interesting because when you look at the number of units that are available in Lisbon, there are a lot of them. But yet housing prices are significantly high here. But something else we've noticed is that homes tend to sit on the market for a very long time. And when they finally do sell, they sell at a price that is significantly lower than the actual asking price. So that is a dynamic that we think we can use to our advantage.
One of the things I find really interesting about the housing market here also is that it's very different from the United States, because here they don't have something that's similar to an MLS listing. They have different properties that different agents show. So properties are tied to agents versus agents showing any property that's available. So that's something that's very different than the United States real estate market. The other thing that we've discovered is that interest rates are significantly lower here compared to the United States. So interest rates on a mortgage here can be as low as 1%.
And this brings us to our next point, because as we're looking for a home, one of the things that we have confirmed is that we want to live here in Lisbon, Portugal. Now, Portugal is not a very big country, but we've been all over the country, and time again, we keep coming back to this idea of settling down in Lisbon. I mean, we've been to Porto, we've been to the Algarve, and they have their pros and cons. But for us, everything is in Lisbon. All of the activities, all of the concerts, all of the conferences. This is the center of Portugal. And so we're very young, early retirees, and we want to be where all the activity is. Maybe when we get older and we slow down a bit, maybe we'll move to the countryside. But for now, we want to be in the city.
Now, one of the reasons why we say we've learned this over the past 6 months is because one of the other places that we were thinking about moving to Portugal was the Algarve. Now, the Algarve is part of southern Portugal. It's right on the beach. It's a beautiful place. And we actually just went there last weekend because our oldest daughter had a basketball tournament there. But when we went there, we realized that the Algarve is a sleepy town during the off season. There's not much to do, and a lot of the places are closed. Over the summertime, it's overrun with tourists, but during the off season, it's very quiet. And we realized over this time, over these past 6 months, is that we like the energy of the city, and Lisbon offers that here. And the next thing that we've learned over the past 6 months here in Lisbon is we've learned more about the healthcare system here. Now, we have had 2 hospital visits since we've been here.
Hospital visits, we have been to the emergency room twice. One for Malia and one for Sanoa. And thank goodness we were here in Portugal because we were so impressed by the service. I mean, I think we underestimated how good healthcare was here. Now, keep in mind, we do have private insurance, so we are paying for our insurance, but the private insurance has been well worth it.
So one of the things that I'm really impressed with is the wait time. Our most recent visit to the emergency room, we took Sanoa. When she got to the emergency room, she threw up, and they immediately took her in to see a nurse, and then immediately after that, a doctor. They took blood tests, they did x-rays. Luckily, everything was completely fine and she just had to get a medication, but all of that all together only cost us $30 for that emergency hospital visit.
Yes, that was actually an amazing visit because they did the blood work, they did the x-rays, and she was seen by a doctor and only cost us $30. You see, the way our insurance works is that you pay $30 when you're first admitted, and that's it. You pay that $30, they do whatever they need to do, and then you leave. All for $30. It was amazing. Could you imagine going to an emergency room in the US and paying $30? They would charge you $30 just for a Band-Aid. So we were so impressed by the service and by the cost.
And one other thing, when we talk about living here in Lisbon, we've always talked about the language, and we've always stressed that a lot of people here speak English. And when we took our girls to the emergency room visits, they were at 2 different hospitals, and at each hospital, the doctors spoke fluent English, the nurses spoke fluent English, and even the people at the front desk spoke fluent English, so we had no communication barriers.
Now, because healthcare is so affordable, we are getting a lot of work done. And we laugh at this because we're not getting like plastic surgery or anything like that. But our daughters are getting braces. We looked at the cost of getting our daughters braces in the US, and it was like $6,000 or $7,000 to get braces for them. Sanoa is getting her braces done right now, and it's only going to cost us $1,500, and that's for the braces and for 24 months of servicing those braces.
So next on our list, something that we discovered over these past 6 months is the residency visa approval process. Now, this process to us was slightly terrifying because we didn't know if we were going to be approved for a full year or not. It goes through 1-year increments. And when we went to our appointment, it was the smoothest and easiest process we have ever experienced.
So our experience is in contrast to what the Facebook forums will have you believe. I mean, before we got here, we did a lot of research and we went on every imaginable forum that talked about the visa process. And it will scare you. You will be anxious. But the process that we went through, it was relatively smooth. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but they would have you think that you would have to show up and give up your firstborn to get your visa. But it was actually very easy. As long as you have all your paperwork, you show up with it, provide it to them, and that's it. They give you a visa. I was almost surprised. I was waiting for something, but they said, no, your card will be in the mail and it should get to you in a couple of weeks. And that's it.
So the process works by you first initially getting an appointment. And I will say that the appointment can take some time as you're waiting. So if you have an appointment on a specific day and it's at 10:30, you could wait up to 2 hours before you actually see someone. So a 10:30 appointment, you see someone at 12:30, but when you actually see that person, it takes way less than even 5 minutes for them to go through your paperwork and approve your residency visa.
Now, one more thing to add. While we were going through this process of getting our visa, one of the things that we looked into was hiring someone to help us with the process. And when you go on different forums, there are people that are fishing to provide you that service. They really, I think they're selling their services on Facebook and Reddit and these different places. But the more we learned about it, the more we realized that I think this is something that we can do. So if that's something that you're considering, do your research, because for us at least, even though we were anxious as we went through the process was relatively easy. And I think it's something that someone can DIY themselves.
And the next thing that we've learned over these past 6 months is that the Portuguese service is very laid back. And when I'm talking about service, I'm talking about at a grocery store or at a electronics store, or even when you have construction people that are coming to do things. Like we had an elevator that needed fixing or needed repair in our building, and it took an extremely long amount of time for them to come in and fix it. It's because the attitude here is much more laid back than compared to the United States.
Now, we are very patient people, and we understand that this, in a way, is kind of a cultural thing, where people tend to take longer lunches, where someone can tell you that they'll do something, but it's kind of a gray period as to when they'll actually do it. I mean, they'll eventually get to doing it, but they won't get it done when you think it should be done. You see, when you live in the United States and maybe some of the other countries, when somebody tells you they're going to have something done on Friday in the US, if they don't have it done on Friday, you can complain. You can make a big deal about it. But here in Portugal, if someone tells you that they're going to have something done on Friday and it doesn't happen, it just doesn't happen. You have to wait till Monday or maybe next Friday after that. But you don't go and make a fuss about it. You don't get in anyone's face. That's just the way of life.
So we've really come to understand that this laid back attitude is really part of the Portuguese culture, and you really have to embrace it, even if it's not what you're used to. Like for us, we're not used to it while we're living in the United States. But that brings us to our next point, is living in the United States compared to here, there are a lot of things that we can't get that are in the United States, which makes complete sense. But one of the things that surprised us is that we tried to ship things from the States to here in Portugal, and one specific item was going to cost us $100 in tariffs, more than the item itself, in order for them to release it to us here.
Now, we bring this up for you guys because this is a very big point. If you move to a foreign country and you're still expecting to be able to buy things in the US and send it to yourself in that country, you can't do that. I mean, you can, but it is going to be very expensive over the long run, because tariffs are real, my friend, especially when you are shipping stuff from the US. But our point is, if you are living in Portugal, in any foreign country, get used to buying things in that country. And if you can't buy them in that country, well, then you just can't buy them. You have to let it go. You cannot get what you got in the US in Portugal. You must assimilate. And that is what has been so amazing about these past 6 months, is that since we've been here, we have had a smooth transition. We have been so fortunate for me and Christina to be able to assimilate into the culture, for our daughters to recreate everything that they had in the US and in the other countries that they lived here in Portugal. They have friends, they have sports. Everything has been really smooth. And so we are very fortunate to be here.
So yes, we definitely think we are so fortunate that we reached financial independence quit our jobs, and we were able to retire here in Lisbon. Now, this has just been 6 months that we've been here, and we've learned a lot through those 6 months. And maybe in a year from now, we'll do another video on all the additional things that hopefully we'll have learned from living here in Lisbon. Now, remember, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and
Join the journey. Now, because our healthcare is so affordable here, we are getting a lot of work done. I'm not getting a lot of work done, but we're doing a lot of work for our kids. Our kids are both...
He's so
I'm sorry. Our kids are both getting braces.
You ruined it.